the rise of Mali, and the emergence of Mansa Musa. When we think of the wealthiest individuals in history, names like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates immediately come to mind. These men are celebrated as the richest of our time, with fortunes that seem unimaginable. However, their wealth pales in comparison to the true richest man in history, a man whose fortune was so vast that it impacted entire economies and reshaped the world. That man's name was Mansa Musa, the Emperor of Mali, a king who ruled over a massive empire in West Africa in the 14th century. His wealth was so legendary that it transcended borders and cultures. Yet today, his story is often overlooked or forgotten. Mansa Musa's riches were so extraordinary that even when he traveled, he didn't just bring his advisors or a handful of servants. No, he journeyed with a massive entourage. Tens of thousands of people, including soldiers, scholars, servants, and hundreds of camels laden with gold. The sheer scale of his wealth was so remarkable that Musa's name became synonymous with luxury, and his pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 made the world take notice. Yet, despite this grandeur, his legacy remains absent from most history books and Hollywood narratives. But today, we're changing that narrative. This is the story of Mansa Musa, the richest man to ever live, a king whose wealth was not just counted in coins, but in the impact it had on the economies of entire regions. Let us begin by exploring the vast empire he inherited and how it grew into the epicenter of wealth and culture. The birth of Mali and the importance of salt and gold. Mansa Musa didn't inherit just any kingdom. He inherited the Mali Empire, a vast and prosperous realm in West Africa. The 14th century was a time when kingdoms rose and fell not based on modern commodities, but on two precious resources: salt and gold. Mali was rich in both. Imagine caravans crossing the vast Sahara Desert, transporting slabs of salt, an incredibly valuable commodity at the time. The Niger River teemed with trade ships laden with gold, mined from deep within the earth. This wasn't a poor, forgotten land. This was a land of wealth and opportunity, even before Mansa Musa took the throne. By the time Musa was born, the Mali Empire was already one of the richest kingdoms on earth, with borders stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the heart of the Sahara Desert. Cities like Timbuktu and Gao were thriving trade hubs filled with merchants, scholars, and architects. The mosques towered over the skyline, and libraries contained manuscripts on medicine, law, and science. While Europe struggled through the Dark Ages, Mali was a beacon of knowledge, wealth, and culture. But every great empire needs a visionary leader, and in 1312, a young noble named Musa ascended to the throne. His rise to power wasn't conventional, and some historians believe he was appointed as deputy emperor while the reigning monarch went on a mysterious journey, possibly to the Americas. When the emperor never returned, the crown passed to Musa, and with him, Mali would experience an unprecedented era of expansion and prosperity. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage and his legacy of wealth. Musa's ambition. Musa's approach to leadership was unique. While many rulers were focused solely on protecting their borders, Musa sought to expand the Mali Empire, bringing in more territory, more people, and more resources. Through both diplomacy and military conquest, he pushed the empire's borders further, securing critical trade routes that ensured gold and salt flowed steadily into the empire's coffers. But Musa was more than just a conqueror. He was a visionary. Unlike many wealthy rulers who hoarded their wealth, Musa saw wealth as a tool to leave a legacy. While others stockpiled gold, Musa planned to use it to create something lasting, something monumental. His opportunity to make his mark on history came when he decided to embark on an unprecedented journey, one that would echo through time. the pilgrimage to Mecca. In 1324, Musa embarked on the Hajj, a religious pilgrimage to Mecca, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. However, Musa did not go quietly. Instead, he set out with an entourage that included tens of thousands of people: soldiers, servants, scholars, and traders. But the most astonishing part of his journey was the gold he brought with him. Hundreds of camels each carried hundreds of pounds of gold. Musa's caravan stretched across the desert as far as the eye could see. When Musa arrived in Cairo, his spending spree was so extravagant that it crippled the Egyptian economy. The gold he distributed caused inflation, and the price of gold dropped so drastically that it took over a decade for the economy to recover. Imagine the power of one man's wealth shaking the global market. But Musa wasn't just showing off his riches, he was making a powerful statement. He was saying, "Mali is here, Africa is here. We are rich, powerful, and we belong at the heart of the world's civilization." Musa's global impact. Musa's pilgrimage didn't just impact economies, it sent shockwaves throughout the known world. As he passed through cities and spread his wealth, word of his extravagance and power spread. Mapmakers in Europe, who had never been to Africa, began drawing Musa's likeness on their maps, a testament to his global significance. On the 1375 Catalan Atlas, Musa is depicted holding a golden orb, a symbol of his incredible wealth. For the first time in history, Africa was no longer a blank spot on European maps. It now had a face, and that face belonged to Mansa Musa, the wealthiest man the world had ever known. Musa's vision for Timbuktu. After completing his pilgrimage, Mansa Musa returned to Mali and set about transforming his empire into a center of learning and culture. Inspired by the grandeur of cities like Mecca and Cairo, he sought to make Timbuktu a hub of intellectualism, where scholars could gather to debate philosophy, astronomy, medicine, and law. Musa poured his wealth into this vision, commissioning the construction of mosques, palaces, and libraries that would house hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. At its peak, Timbuktu became a global center of learning, a place where books were copied and sold like precious treasures. Timbuktu's libraries contained more books than any other place in the world at the time, making it the intellectual heart of Africa and a shining beacon of knowledge in the world. While Europe was enduring the Dark Ages, Mali stood as a beacon of light, filled with culture, innovation, and progress, all fueled by the vast gold reserves that Mansa Musa had built his empire upon. The legacy of Mansa Musa. However, like all empires, wealth fades and time moves on. But what remains is the legacy of Mansa Musa, not just in gold, but in the intellectual and cultural influence he left behind. His vision and power redefined what it meant to be wealthy, and he showed the world that Africa was not a forgotten land, but a cradle of greatness. His story isn't just about money, it's about vision, empowerment, and the enduring legacy of Black excellence. When we think of the richest man in history, we often turn our thoughts to names like Musk, Bezos, or Gates. But the truth is, the true king of wealth was Mansa Musa, the emperor of Mali, whose wealth was so immense it could reshape economies and transform cities. He was a ruler who proved that Africa was not only capable of greatness but was the birthplace of it. So the next time someone asks you who the richest man in the world was, don't just think of Silicon Valley or Wall Street, remember the name of Mansa Musa. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to keep his story alive, because the more we tell it, the harder it becomes for anyone to erase his legacy.
अच्छी बात है यार, ठीक है। शुक्रिया। जब खाना तो सर खोल दी सिर्फ ठंडी का, अब कुछ कह भी नहीं सकते।
बाहर से ठीक है, अंदर से इसलिए तो उसने खोली।
ये बहुत सही लगती है।
अच्छा लग रहा है इस वजह से। पूरा लास्ट बार है। असल इसका जो बन होता है ना, वो होता है असल बन की वजह से खाई भैया।
जी कहाँ पे आ गया?
दिल्ली का बच्चा, बाल उसकी समझ ही नहीं आती किसी को भी।